Hello, cats and kittens. Welcome to Manga Monday. It's Manga Monday, and I'm here with my impressions on One Piece 990 and 991. Also, X-Men+Fantastic 4, and my final conclusions on Powers, House of X, Powers of 10. I'm going to try to get this in as quick as humanly possible, but with as much detail as possible. So starting with One Piece, I will say, looking at 990, the battle has started, which I love. As much as I love foreshadowing and all of that good stuff, I, I want the fights. I really do want the fights. And we get the fights here. We start off with the 9 scabbards on the roof with Kaido. And it's interesting because both have, you could say, fodder or pawns with them. Neither is making a move on each other. The scabbards have not moved on Kaido. Kaido hasn't moved on. They're staring each other down, and the I hate to say pawns, but they're fighting. The pawns are fighting each other. The pawns basically being the minks in their Sulong forms fighting against. There are a couple of numbers up there, and the Beast Pirates. It's a back and forth, but it looks like in the end, Jack is also up there, and he starts cleaning out people left and right, even though he's taking damage himself. At which point, Kinemon is about to draw his sword and go in on Jack. Him and Jack have a stare down. Inuarashi and Nekomamushi say, "Wait, we got this." And you got to remember, they owe him. He cut off their arm and leg respectively back in Zoro, so they're like, "We got this," which I love. But that's off screen. Okay, so that's scene number 1. Scene number 2, we catch up with Drake, who is basically revealing the fact, for the most part, that he's a traitor. He was never really down for the Toby Ropo, and he didn't want to be a headliner, none of that stuff. He's telling Hawkins basically, "Hey, you in on this? I'm about to betray these cats. Let's do this, whatever." And at the same time, I think it's King basically puts out the word that, the deal to become one of the headliners, I think it's a headliner or something, whatever it is off. Right now, concentrate on stopping the invading forces from getting to the top of Onigashima. That's the priority. Stop them. Then we move over to the invading forces, which is Luffy, the samurai. Luffy and the samurai. They are being opposed by the Beast Pirates in numbers. The big giant numbers, who are apparently about the size of oars. I say oars. Which is interesting because it kind of mirrors the situation in this lobby where the shipwrights and the Gorilla Company were fighting their way through the Marines and the Giants to let the Straw Hats get a shot at taking out CP9 and rescuing Nico Robin. But in this case, they're fighting against Kaido's forces so that they can get up on the roof and fight Kaido. Now, in the old days, if you were dealing, Luffy even makes a statement. In the old days, if we were fighting against somebody like Oars, we would have to jump him, which they did back in Thriller Bark, and take him down. But he says, "Nah, this ain't the old days." And he fires up a Gear 4, and he's about to take the dude out. Zoro comes through and cuts off one of the numbers clubs, and Jinbei basically stops it with one hand, and people are like, "Oh snap! These cats is dangerous." Which they are. So we're gonna get to see there, and we know that they've leveled up. That's why I'm so enthusiastic about seeing these fights, because we already know this Luffy's gotten stronger. We know that for the most part, that Sanji and Zoro have gotten stronger. It's time to see the rest of the Straw Hats level up. Everybody's going to have to put in work. You can't just have the monster trio or the top guys going through and wrecking shop. Everybody's going to have to put in work here. When Luffy fired up his Gear 4, on that panel, there's a shot of Sanji and Brook. And initially I thought they're kind of looking at him as he fires up his Gear 4, and I said, oh, they've never seen that before. But then I remembered back on the Whole Cake Island, he did fire up a Gear 4 with the intention of taking down Big Mom, but she basically brushed that off. So they must have seen his Gear 4. They had to have. But yeah, whatever. That's just something that hit my head at the time when I was reading this. So again, that goes to another off screen, and we go back to Queen, where he's beaten down. He's beaten down Drake. Discovered he's known all along that he was a traitor. He said, "You sure?" Oh, he's basically asking him to spill the beans. Drake's like, "Nah, I hate to break it to you, but even if you kill me, I won't speak." And he's like, Queen's like, "Yeah, well, wait till we get to the torture. We'll see if you don't talk." At which point, Drake makes a run for it. He doesn't know what he should do. Does he have any hope? Then he remembers from Kobe that apparently Luffy was somebody that was amazing and that he could trust. So he basically throws in with Luffy and the Straw Hats, or ass Straw Hat Luffy. For reasons I cannot say now, I am an army of one. Please let me fight on your side. And Luffy's like, huh, all right, switch to the next chapter. And the next chapter, which continues, Luffy essentially says yes to Drake. But unfortunately for him, Zoro doesn't think so, and he goes in on Drake. He attacks Drake. Luffy has a pretty good track record of knowing who to trust and who not to trust. I'm assuming that's tied in with his observation haki. He's good at he has a good judge of character, but Zoro doesn't agree with him. I don't think Frankie or Jinbei is really feeling Drake at this point. So that blows up. We get an interesting matchup here. We have Page One and Ulti and Page One basically looks like they're going to get matched up with Usopp and Nami, which I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that because Usopp and Nami especially, they need a fight. I can't remember when they've had legitimate fights. And this is a pretty big fight because Ulti and Page One, they apparently seem to have some gold. They're part of the Toby Robo. So you assume that this is, I think it's interesting because they may be capable fighters. Ulti and Page One may be capable fighters, but I think not only do Nami and Usopp need a win, I'm not sure if they're even going to get a win, but they need to be shown as capable in the new world. And I think they're underrated as fighters. Maybe not straight up brawling fighters, but they're capable. They're strategic fighters. And, people sleep on that climate tech. It can do some damage. So I think that's going to be a pretty good matchup. Interesting, at least, because they're going to have to put in some work, which the rest of the Straw Hats do. They need to do. Okay, so we got Luffy again using his observation haki because he senses, which is interesting because apparently Luffy, the way his observation haki works in general, I'm assuming when you're in battle mode, it's just on to some degree because he's running and he says, cover your ears. He tells Sanji to cover his ears because Apu is attacking. So he sussed that out before it happens and gave Sanji the warning. Then they go in. Apparently Apu can control the numbers, which is interesting because I think Brook would be a good fight, assuming that Brook could also use his could he tame them with his music the same way that Apu apparently is able to tame the numbers with music. And apparently he has a $350 million bounty. Fair. Okay, so this big number, Hacha, is attacking, and it looks like he's using another number to attack. Like he's picking them up and he's about to throw them onto people. Frankie goes in on him and is about to light him up with a. Let me see. Was he about to hit him with a laser beam? No, actually, he says that he's running out of cola, and if they have to attack all of these numbers, it could be expensive in that respect. So he lures the number away because the number apparently is enamored with him, thinking he's a toy. Okay, so interesting. Now you have a situation where I guess Zorro and Zorro and Drake put their differences aside to double team Apu. Not the fight I was looking for, but this is going to be a big fight apparently, because honestly, the two of them should be able to level that man pretty quickly. Not that I'm trying to undercut or underrate Apu or whatever. And while that's going on, Queen comes in. Apparently, he has some measure of bullets that are extremely dangerous that Drake recognizes. He's like, what's he saying? Did you really think you could kill me with that? Unless these bullets. He realizes something about the bullets off screen, which takes us back to the top of Onigashima. Jack the Jobber takes the L. Although I can't say he's a jobber because he got blitzed. He got double teamed by two minks in Sulan form, namely Inuarashi and Nekomamushi, which is a hard. And then we get to see their Sulan forms, which are actually pretty tight. So that'd be a hard work for anybody. And to his credit, Kaido tells him so. He says, it's not necessarily that you was weak, but you was going up against a couple of beasts, in so many words. Which is actually, for Kaido, I thought he'd just, blow him off and say, you're weak, Jack, you're weak, whatever. So then we get a decent feat, I guess, for Kinemon. Kaido goes in with his blast breath. Kinemon cuts it in half. Firefox Kinemon. You expect that much. But it's a decent feat because Kinemon, I'm not sure how many feats he actually has. But Blast Breath was pretty potent. And I like the fact that he flexed some attitude on that because he went straight into it. He got the Eye of the Tiger going and cut it in half like, this is what I do. You know what I mean? I respect that scene. I can't even say it's that big a feat. I say that's a feat because he doesn't have that many. And then they basically make that declaration, man, we're here to die and we're taking you with us. Break. All right, so we're on break this week, or we were on break last week. I'm not sure if we're getting a new chapter this week. Overall, I'm pleased with the way the fight's going. I'm pleased with the fact that the fight started, but I don't know. These are preliminaries, ultimately. I think these are preliminary fights. This is not going to end well. I think this is going to be an L for the good guys, and they're going to have to regroup, and we'll get a second set of fights after this. I don't know if that second set is going to be the definitive fights, because a lot of people are calling for Zoro versus King, Sanji versus Queen, blah, blah, blah. And then at some point, maybe the Supernovas. Because to me, the Scabbards, they're not going to take down Kaido. It's either going to be the Supernovas or some assortment of people that don't include the 9 Scabbards, because they're getting, I ain't going to say they're going to get no diff, just flattened, but this is not going to be their W. You're taking a hard L here, probably. All the forces probably in general are going to take a hard L, and then the fight will continue at some other time. That's just a guess. But I don't see this being the final fight in regard to Kaido. this is going to go on for a little bit. So again, it's a good start to the battles. This, been looking forward to this for a while. We'll see what happens either this week or next week. So that puts the kibosh on the manga portion of our review. Let's see what's going on with Marvel Comics. I have my notes. Let's start with House of X Powers of 10 story. All right. So the way I'm doing this, I'm going story, plot, and then overall execution. All right. That's how I'm basically doing this review. So House of X Powers of 10 story by Jonathan Hickman, Pepe Larraz, I believe, R.B. Silva, and Marte Garcia. The art is top flight. I mentioned that earlier in my earlier review, my half review or whatever. It's top flight. I mean, these cats can draw flat out. The colors, the pencils, inks, it's top flight. If you love sequential art, buy this trade or get the books, the individual books. It's imaginative storytelling, especially the stuff that takes place in Krakoa. They illustrate Krakoa beautifully. All right, fantastic detail. So the art gets a grade of A plus. Beautiful to look at. By all means, if you just want good art, buy this book. Okay, so that's art. Plot. The plot is as follows. Moira McTaggart, a mutant with the power of reincarnation, apparently, discovers over several lifetimes that Professor X's dream of a peaceful coexistence between human and mutants is ultimately doomed to failure due to the inevitable emergence of a man-machine technological singularity which will bring doom to both man and mutant, that being in the far-flung future. So Xavier modifies his dream, joining hands with enemies such as Magneto, Mr. Sinister, Apocalypse, and others, and together they create a mutant state called Krakoa and welcome all mutants there from all over the world, and they create an economic power base based on a pharmaceutical resource grown only on Krakoa. So they're not necessarily holding the world hostage, they're just selling pharmaceuticals. It's a hustle, but it's an honest hustle. You want it, we got it. Cures cancers and lengthens life, all of that good stuff. You give us the cash, we give you the drugs. And so that's the basic plot. That's basically what's going on. It's a modification of Xavier's dream based on knowledge of the future. The plot, on the whole, I will give a B. It's clever. As I go into the execution, I'll say that it's almost too clever at times, but it's a very imaginative, ambitious idea, which I appreciate because cookie cutter stuff is, it's cookie cutter. It's a very, very ambitious story told in 2 books. Oh, wow, this gets into the execution. It's a non-linear story told in 2 books over the period of thousands of years in book. Okay. What else? Very ambitious. These are not your daddy's X-Men or your granddaddy's X-Men. This is not the Chris Claremont X-Men. So don't go in thinking, oh, that's not how Professor Xavier would talk. He would never do that. This is a different set of circumstances. Don't go in with preconceived notions as to how these characters should act. I'll tell you that beforehand. Okay, the story is plot-driven more so than character-driven. So you're not going to get the feels that you would get with Claremont. Claremont did stories based on characters. Jean Grey, Scott Summers, blah, blah, blah. Jean, whatever. So you're not going to get that so much. Xavier's up front, McTaggart's up front, but there's not a lot of people in here that you're going to really, really feel for because the plot is the thing. The pacing, I would always say, I'll also say that there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of dialogue, but when there is action, like the suicide mission to destroy the master mold, it's well rendered, it's well represented, but there's a lot of talking, so be prepared for that. The pacing is interrupted by supplemental information. There are maps, diagrams, charts, blah, 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 lots of stuff, heavy exposition that cuts into the story. It's intrusive, in my opinion, at times, but necessary. I don't think Hickman couldn't find a way to bake it into the story, although he did it sometimes, so the exposition was kind of redundant, but it is what it is. I found it distracting at times, but whatever. So it's a very smart book, and it knows it. This is a clever book. At times, I compare it to watching Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. And if you know me, you know how I feel about that movie. Very clever, but I don't necessarily. I never felt for anybody in that flick. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't about feeling. It was about the plot. So there's that. So for the execution, it may sound harsh, but I'm giving it a C+. A C+, because it's very ambitious, but I'm a guy that's a little bit more for feel than for plot. You don't got to clever me to death. You just give me something I can hold on to. So I give it a C, and the overall verdict is get the trade, keep an open mind, and find a good sturdy chair to sit in when you read it. I'll leave it at that. But by all means, I recommend this book. It's excellent craftsmanship. Excellent craftsmanship. Which brings us to X-Men and the Fantastic Four, story by Chip Zdarsky, art by Terry and Rachel Dodson, and colors by Laura Martin. The art is top of the line, is professional work. The Dodsons and Martin, their reputation is top shelf. Pretty good fight scenes, although not epic. Not epic. It's good. It's solid. Professional work, but not, it's not mind-blowing. For some reason, Franklin's hair is dark. I think he just dyed it because he's teen rebellion. I don't know. But facial expressions, all that stuff is very good. Talking scenes are dead on. Good facial expressions. The art gets a B+, better than average, but some stuff looks a little phoned in. A little phoned in at times. The plot. The X-Men are out to recruit Franklin Richards from the Fantastic Four to live with them on the island of Krakoa. Okay, so Krakoa is recruiting mutants to come live there. As a subplot, Franklin's powers seem to be fading out or not replenishing themselves. And he's frustrated that his father, Reed Richards, can't do anything about it. Reed Richards is a genius of the Fantastic Four. He can't do anything about it. Interestingly, Professor Xavier and Magneto recruit Kitty or Kate Pryde to use her, which I say use, to recruit Franklin. Now, and Franklin is torn between his family and his race as being a mutant. So do I go and leave my family to go and live with my people, or do I stay with my family? And Dr. Doom is, of course, involved, and he's up to shenanigans, but we'll get into that later. So for the plot, I give it a B. I gave the art a B+. The plot gets a B. Solid plot, good story, good good point of contention between the two groups, but some characters are either dumbed down or inconsistent, and I cite Doom, Storm, Iceman, and Reed Richards as examples, which I'll get into in the execution. Now, execution. The pace of the story seems a little rushed to me. It's a 4-issue story in this trade. It's a 4-issue story in trade, and it seems a little bit rushed, which maybe that's what gives it a little bit of a where it seems a little phoned in at times. The characterization is reliant on your understanding of House of X, Powers of 10, so you really need to have read that before you read this. Let's see. Kate and the reason why Xavier uses Kate or Kitty Pryde to recruit Richards is based on a story from 1987, Fantastic Four versus X-Men, which is strange because with all of the recanting and with all of the continuity changes that have gone on, even in the last 10 years, how can you believe that a story from 1987 actually holds up in continuity? So that's baffling to me, but you got to hand wave that. Xavier and Magneto, I never get the impression that they want or even like Franklin. He's a resource, which is not inconsistent if you read House of X, Powers of 10. So that's not a negative. It's just a fact. His family loves him. His mother is extremely protective of him. His father is his father, although his father does him dirty for reasons that you'll have to read and see. But he, to the X-Men, I never get the impression that he is loved. He's just wanted because he's extremely powerful, or potentially extremely powerful. Although Kitty has genuine fondness for him, and that comes through in the writing. Doom's motivations in the story, to me, are iffy at best. He wants to either prove that Richards is an idiot because he can't solve this problem with Franklin, or he's just doing Doom stuff because. I'm not sure which. There's a couple of things I have problems with. At one point, he manages to capture Kitty Pryde, Valeria Richards, Franklin Richards, Storm, Iceman, Bishop, and Pyro off screen, no diff. He just captures them. Okay, not only does he capture them, but he has, when they wake up, Kitty and Franklin and Valeria are having dinner with Doom, and the others are just captured somewhere, confined. You're talking about 2 Omega level mutants. Bishop, if he's not Omega level, he's pretty hard. He's a hard out. And Pyro's Pyro. He's not really hard to capture, but capturing Storm and Iceman, no diff is not really, and it's off screen. You know what I mean? It's just done, and that's it. When you next see them, they're sitting in a cell like they were in a waiting room waiting for a dentist. They're not struggling. They're not chained. They're not nothing. They're just sitting there like, oh, hey, guys, come on out. Okay, Dr. No, fine. Okay. What else? Richards doesn't come off as smart as I think he should be. I mean, they basically, even Richards and McCoy, they're basically bowing to Doom's genius as if he's that much smarter than they are to handle this problem with Franklin. Doom and Richards are pretty neck and neck. Maybe Doom's coming at this from a perspective that Richards hadn't thought of, but between Richards' overall genius and Beast, Hank McCoy's knowledge of genetics, they should not be sitting back here saying, oh, well, you go ahead and do what you got to do, Doom, knowing that this guy is a villain. I don't care how long you know him or what you think he is, he's a villain. And just let him deal with your son. Okay. Let me see. So you got to hand wave that too. Richards a bit. when the Fantastic Four find out or believe that the X-Men have kidnapped Franklin, they go on a mission to rescue him, at which time they somehow, you got to hand wave this too, invade Krakoa, which if you read House of X, Powers of 10, I wouldn't think that it would be that easy, although Richards is a genius, all right? So he's a genius sometimes, and then other times, whatever. But he is a genius. He's the leader of Fantastic Four, one of the smartest people on Earth, and he finds a way to get onto an island where only mutants can enter, and you have to come through a gate. And only the island will let you come through that gate. Okay. So there's that. I found that a little weird. And then there's some characters who are just there. The cast to me is a little bit too big. You have people who get a decent amount of treatment. Richards, Sue is very protective. They play her up as the protective mother. They play Richards up as the overprotective and maybe absent-minded to a degree father. Ben gets a little bit of shine as the empathetic uncle, and Johnny's just there. He's just there. Some of the X-Men are just there too. If you have pared down the cast a bit, I think you could have got more out of specific characters than just having a bunch of characters there fighting who you don't really give any shine to. Little stuff, if I want to nitpick. Wolverine accidentally kills another mutant, accidentally, because he's hidden inside of a Doombot. But with his sense of smell, I find that hard to believe. I mean, he killed the dude, he runs him through. I don't really buy that. That's basically it. I mean, I give the plot or the execution, I give that a B-. It's good reading, it's solid reading, but again, it seems a little rushed, and there's a lot of hand-wavy stuff going on there. But it's a good versus type story. The ending is pretty epic. Again, don't expect the Professor X, the kindly Professor X who's in a wheelchair. Nah. This guy's dirty. He's a little bit dirty, depending on your point of view. So the verdict here is I recommend it for lovers of the X-Men's current run. But if you're Chris Claremont type, or you haven't read the book in X number of years, don't expect to be, it's not going to be a jaw dropper. So that is my input for Manga Mondays. I appreciate you checking in the channel. Again, I recommend highly. I guess highly, I would say I give a recommendation for House of X, Powers of 10, and a little less highly for X-Men+Fantastic Four. Even though I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan, I still say check it out. That's it for Manga Mondays. I'll be back at you next week with another with impressions on other books, which I haven't determined yet, but I'll definitely One Piece. The next episode of One Piece and whatever else I'm reading. If you care to subscribe, like, blah, 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 and I'll see you next week. Stay loose.